everybody, Cinema Sick this year with this week's weekly review, where we take a look at all the titles I watched throughout the week, and I give you my quick thoughts on them. So let's take a look at everything I watched. Now before we get down to what I checked out, let me first apologize if I sound awful. I am really sick right now. Not kinda sick, not sorta sick, but really sick, to the point where I should not be making this video. I probably should be lying down in bed right now, but hey, it's Friday, it's that time, it is the day for my weekly review, so gotta do it for you guys. So let's take a look at what I first watched, and the first title I checked out this week was Roxborough and Manayunk, Tales of the 21st Ward of Philadelphia. Now this is not something that's going to interest many of you. If you're from the Philadelphia area, then you might enjoy this. I have many friends who live both in Roxborough and Manayunk. I've been there many times. I still go there to this day to go visit my friends. Love the area. It's really nice. It's really nice area outside of Philadelphia. Well, I say outside of Philadelphia, but outside like the city of Philadelphia, because technically, I don't know about Roxborough, but well, it does say 21st Ward of Philadelphia, so Roxborough must be considered part of Philadelphia. I know Manayunk actually is considered part of Philadelphia, but as far as the city goes, these are located outside the city. And again, I love visiting it, and I really enjoyed this documentary. I think it's only a half hour long. It's not very long at all. I don't think it says on here, but it is really short. Like I said, only about a half hour long. And it just kind of tells you the history of Manayunk and Roxborough from the very beginning. Tells you stories that went on during like the Revolutionary War and all that stuff. Tells you about the factories and the canal and the Schuylkill River and basically what you'd expect from a documentary about Roxborough, Manayunk. So it was a good watch, but like I said, not something that's going to interest everybody. Now, even though I do say it was good, this is definitely, I mean, this case is just kind of taped on here. You could tell this was something just done locally, just for cheap. I'm thinking maybe a student film, because that guy right there, he's the narrator, the guy who is talking about everything, and he definitely looks like a student. So I'm thinking this might have been a student film that they just put a bunch of copies out and gave out to maybe their friends or something like that, and then I eventually got myself a copy of it. So it does have a student film kind of feel. It is low budget, it is kind of cheesy. The weirdest part, though, is the opening. This is done by Psycho Productions. There's a little crazy dude right there. So it starts out almost looking like a skate video. I mean, there's people of like, you know, smoking, drinking, and skateboarding, and doing all kinds of stuff with this crazy music, and the Psycho Productions logo is like flashing and stuff, and I'm thinking, is this the right tape? I almost wanted to stop the VCR and look to make sure I didn't put in some skate video or something. So the opening of it is really misleading. Once you get past the logo, though, then it goes into the documentary, and you're like, oh, okay, it's a documentary about the Roxborough, Manayunk area. It's not a skate video, but again, very misleading opening. They should have done something a bit more mellow. I know that's probably their opening that they use for all their videos, but just seemed really out of place. But anyway, it was a good documentary. It's nothing special. You're probably not going to come across this one very often, as, like I said, I think it was just kind of a student film. And for those of you who do not live in the Roxborough, Manayunk area, you're probably not going to have much interest in it. But if you do come across a copy of it, I'd recommend it. The next title I watched was Lara Croft, Lethal and Loaded. Now this is a documentary actually about the Lara Croft phenomenon. Not necessarily here in the United States, but over in the UK, where Lara Croft was huge. If you think Tomb Raider and Lara Croft were big here in the States, you should have seen how it exploded over in the UK. She was huge over there. And this talks about, again, the phenomenon of everything from, how she became who she was, the development of her, the development of the games, and then kind of up to, I think they go up to, actually, I think it's up to this movie, The Angel of Darkness. I do believe they go up to that game and they kind of stop. We don't get much further than that game. But it's really interesting. They interview a lot of really cool people who helped work on the development of her. They talk about the creator of Lara Croft, people who worked on the video game and designed the video games, what went into that. But the fun part is when they interview people who are just diehard Lara Croft fans, people who basically think she's real and want to marry her, and it's to the point of being pretty darn creepy. And these people should probably go see a psychiatrist. They're definitely a little ill in the head. I mean, these are the people who would fuck like a Lara Croft robot. I mean, they're really into Lara Croft, and I think one guy was like, felt like he was dating her and stuff like that because he plays the game so much. And he was talking about how you can move the camera around, look at her breasts and look at her ass, and I was like, whoa. I mean, yeah, she's a good-looking character, but she's a video game character. You know, you don't need to be, like, wanting to have sex with her. It's kind of weird, but regardless, it was an interesting documentary. It's nothing special. It's only an hour long. Would I recommend it? I'd say if you're really, really into the Tomb Raider games, or you just have interest in, like, learning about them, it's worth picking up, but not for much more than that. It wasn't all that exciting or all that groundbreaking or great, but it was an okay watch. Again, if you like Tomb Raider, if you like Lara Croft, if you want to learn a little bit more about it, I'd recommend checking it out. The next title I watched was Lara Croft, Angel of Darkness, this here being the collector's edition DVD from EB Games. From what I've read, apparently if you pre-order the game at EB Games, they would have sent you this. And it talks about the developments of the game, goes into more of the history again of Lara Croft, so I learned kind of things I already sort of known. It talks about the models who played Lara Croft. Again, they did talk about that in the other DVD as well. So a lot of the same information over again. One thing I did like, though, was they have, it's called Memorable Moments, a collection of the most memorable cinematic sequences from previous Tomb Raider games. So they talk about all the games up to, I think, Angel of Darkness, and they show kind of like the cinematic clips in between sections of the game you play. And that was pretty interesting. I mean, I played it, I've only really played the first game, but it was interesting watching all that and kind of going back to my high school days of playing the original Tomb Raider on the PlayStation. So it was a fun watch. The Hands of Fate featurette, and that was alright. Character profile of Lara Croft and Curtis Tense, that talks about the characters from the game. Interview with Lara Croft, that was kind of stupid. That only lasted like 2 minutes, so that wasn't very long at all. And that's really... Oh, actually, you know what the cool thing was here? They have special exclusive coverage of Lara Croft from the only 24/7 network devoted to video games, G4 TV, for gamers. That was kind of interesting. They had a little, like, half-hour kind of, like, talk on Lara Croft and a look behind the scenes of Lara Croft and stuff. That was pretty interesting. I did appreciate that. And another thing I liked about here is they actually have a boatload of commercials, but not only just for all the games. They have commercials for, like overseas car commercials that feature Lara Croft. I thought it was really cool they did that. They could have just given you the standard game commercials, but the fact that they gave you other commercials too that feature Lara Croft, I thought that was pretty cool. So, would I recommend this? Once again, if you're a fan of the games, if you really want to learn about Lara Croft, if you enjoy Tomb Raider, sure, it's worth getting, but otherwise, it's nothing you need to see. Then I watched Kurt and Courtney. Now, this is a movie I've been wanting to see for some time now, because I used to be a huge, huge Kurt Cobain fan. Back in my middle school days, I was just obsessed with Nirvana and everything grunge rock. I mean, Kurt Cobain was my hero back in the day. Not so much anymore. I mean, I have nothing wrong with Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and grunge and Hole and all that stuff. I love them. I still like the music, but I'm not some big diehard fan anymore. But still learning about Kurt and Courtney, it interests me. Even, you know, it takes me back to middle school. It still holds an interest, so I did want to see this for some time now. But I've been putting it off, picking it up, because I never really came across it for a good price, and I just wasn't quite sure if I really wanted to get it, because I had heard some pretty negative things about this documentary. And I can kind of see why. It wasn't really all that great. In fact, it wasn't even finished. This is an unfinished documentary, because about halfway through the filming and interviews and all that stuff, their backers actually back out of the deal, because apparently Courtney Love and MTV were like threatening to like sue them, and they had relationships, their backers had relationships with both of them, and they didn't want to screw that up, so they ended up backing out of the documentary, and it never got finished. One of the things I do like about it, though, and I read some negative reviews on this. A lot of people were saying, like, oh, it's kind of stupid, a whole documentary about Courtney Love's possible involvement into the death of Kurt Cobain. But I thought it did a pretty good job of that, because it wasn't like they were really trying to push it on you. At no point did I feel like they were trying to say, this happened, Courtney killed Kurt, that's how it happened, that's definitely what it was. It wasn't like a conspiracy theorist type of movie or something like that, where they're really trying to shove it down your throat. They were looking into, you know, could it have been possible? They were interviewing people. None of them were really credible. They were giving you just facts and stuff, and none of them, you know, some of them matched stuff. Some of them were kind of like, oh, that's sort of interesting, but a lot of them just, you know, a lot of the facts were kind of like misleading and things like that. So actually, at one point in this documentary, the guy doing the documentary, he actually goes, I don't think Courtney had anything to do with Kurt Cobain's death. And I thought that was really cool. That, again, they're doing kind of open-minded documentary here, where they're just looking into the possibility, looking into the rumors, looking into the theory of it. Was it true? Was it not? Again, they're not trying to say it was or wasn't. They just want to find out, you know, what possibly could have happened. Which I think kind of like, you know, fuck Courtney Love, because she, throughout this whole documentary, was just threatening to sue him and stuff, and she was just so pissed off this documentary was even being made. But I think it was kind of interesting, how they went about it. So had, I think, Courtney Love actually, sat down, maybe talked to the guy who did this documentary and said, what are you really doing? And he just said, I'm, looking into the theory, well, I'm just getting interviews and testimonies and, throwing facts and stuff like that. Was it true, was it not? I don't know. I just wanted to do an interesting documentary on it. Maybe she would have been okay with it. I don't know, but she was pretty much a pain in the ass through this whole documentary and really added to it not getting finished. It's not, again, it's not that great of a documentary. It's just okay. I mean, the fact that it wasn't finished, that kind of leads to it not being all that great. I do find a really funny moment, though, where, again, the guy making the documentary goes to, I forget what organization it is, but it's an organization that's really for public speech and stuff like that. And Courtney Love's the kind of the head guest that night, and she does a speech and stuff. He goes up on stage and just rips Courtney Love apart, saying that he thinks it's ridiculous that she's the head speaker of this ceremony when she's threatening, and they actually have phone call recordings of her threatening reporters and stuff, and even Kurt Cobain threatening reporters and whatnot for news they were gonna leak and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny to see her being so for free speech, but then you hear these videotapes of her cursing out people who just were basically trying to say what they had to say. Again, free speech. So kind of amusing. I did enjoy that part. But all in all, it's just an okay documentary. I can't really recommend it to everybody. I guess if you're a diehard Nirvana fan or something like that, or you have some interest in learning about the the Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love theory of her having anything to do with the death of Kurt Cobain, I guess check it out. But again, it's not a finished documentary, so it's only alright. Next I watched Detention. This was complete garbage. Within the first 5 minutes of this film, I turned to my wife and said, I hate that I force myself to sit through entire movies. If I didn't do that, if I wasn't the type of guy that says, once I start a movie, I gotta finish it, I would have turned this off within 5 minutes. It just was such a mess. I think the movie was trying to do kind of this, artsy, wacky, nutty, all this crazy stuff's going on, all the crazy characters, type of movie, and it just didn't work. My wife kept saying, maybe we were missing something. Maybe we just didn't get the movie. No, I don't think so. I just think they were trying way too hard to be, kind of wacky, goofy, artsy, in-your-face type of movie, and it just was shit. It just did such a horrible job. The story was crap. The characters were crap. Everything was shit. Also, as a kid who grew up in the 90s, maybe that also had to do something with it. The fact that there's so many 90s references in this movie. This movie's all about the 90s. And, I'm kind of like, that didn't happen in the 90s. That doesn't look like the 90s. Nobody dressed like that in the 90s. Nobody actually said that stuff in the 90s. A lot of stuff like that. Maybe also helped, towards my hatred of this movie. But it was just really poorly done. Pretty sure I knew what they were going for, but they just fell flat with it. So Detention, stay far, far, far away from this movie. It sucked ass. Up next was Out of Towners. Before anybody asks, no, I've not seen the original. This was mediocre. I'm a big fan of Goldie Hawn, I love Steve Martin, John Cleese, you can't go wrong there. But in the end, I didn't think it was all that funny. It had some memorable moments. It was okay. It was just a whole story about these people from Ohio, again, Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn from Ohio, end up going to New York, and they're, out-of-towners, or fish is out of water, and all the craziness that ensues, getting mugged and not being able to get a hotel room and losing their luggage and just one kind of bad thing after another. And, of course, in the end, it all works out for the best. John Cleese, I was kind of disappointed in his role. Usually he's the one who steals a movie, and I gotta say, he does do the best. He is the funniest out of the entire film. A lot of his, I think he was ad-libbing a lot. A lot of his scenes where they would come into a scene, he'd be talking to somebody before he delivers his line. I'm pretty sure he was ad-libbing, and those were really, really funny moments, but I wasn't a huge fan of his character. I just thought he was okay. So, would I recommend the movie? I would just say, maybe if you have some interest in seeing it, sure, it wasn't horrible, it wasn't bad, it had good actors, it had an okay story, but that was a problem. It was just okay, it was just mediocre, it wasn't anything great. So if you have interest in seeing it, sure, why not? It was pretty decent, but otherwise, you don't need to see it. Then I checked out The Three Amigos, and I think we all know this is a fantastic movie. If you have not seen this one, stop the video now, go out and buy it, and watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. I grew up with this movie. This is one of those films you used to play on HBO every single weekend, and I used to watch it every single weekend when I was a little kid. Love the movie. It's one of my all-time childhood favorites of a film. It's extremely, extremely funny, but the good thing about watching this is I haven't watched it in maybe like 8 years or so, so it was kind of like watching it all over again. It was really, really fun to watch some of the moments, like from the beginning of the film that I've only seen a couple times, moments that, I'd always miss when I used to watch it as a kid. I really enjoyed watching this again. The special features on it, there is 20 minutes, and never before seen clips from an alternative cut of the film. They're not spliced into the movie, which I really wish they would have done. Instead, you just watch them separately. It's interesting to check out, but they do cast interviews, and you get this booklet, which I haven't read yet. I'm going to check that out. It's Amigos Reunited. It's a little booklet. Looks pretty interesting though. Talks to like all the characters. Talks to John Landis, the director. So it's pretty interesting. I definitely got to read that at some point. But again, it's a fantastic movie. This is one I highly, highly, highly recommend. I don't think I need to talk about it. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but if you haven't, I don't want to spoil it. Check this one out. It's great. I mean, come on. Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short. I mean, Martin Short and Steve Martin are just brilliant. Chevy Chase, yeah, he's kind of hit or miss on some stuff. He can be funny sometimes and not so funny on other times. I think he's great in this one. He has some very, very funny moments. So again, see this movie. You have no reason not to. And the last title I watched this week was Premium Rush. This was a really fun and intense film. It's all about Joseph Gordon-Levitt and just, he's a bike messenger, and he ends up getting mixed up in this whole big sort of like the crime syndicate kind of thing where there's this group of Asians who, they have this ticket worth a lot of money, and we have Michael Shannon right there, who just fucking balls-to-the-wall nuts character in this movie, really fucking disturbing and scary. He owes money to this group of Asians. Now he wants to steal his ticket because it's worth a lot of money, and he's chasing down Joseph Gordon-Levitt the whole time, and just insane. I mean, from start to finish, this movie is just fucking intense. You just want to see what's going to happen next. Great bike scenes, too. Love that. But, again, Michael Shannon, holy shit. He should win an Oscar for being one of the most disturbing, just, bad guys in a film ever. He's just scary as hell. I mean, this guy's scarier than Freddy Krueger. I mean, you do not want to screw with this guy. He is not all there in the head. He's just mentally deranged and will kill you if he just feels like it. And he's a cop, so a lot of times he can get away with it, and pretty much throughout this film, he just thinks that. He thinks, I can get away with doing whatever I want. I'm a police officer, and he uses that to his advantage. So, great, great, great film. You can actually pick this one up right now. I know Fries.com has it on the website for only $5.99. What I did was printed that out, took it to my Best Buy and price match it, so I did get this for $5.99. $6 is a great deal for this movie because it was a hell of a lot of fun. If you like thrillers, you just like really, really intense movies, this is definitely one to check out. Again, great from start to finish, and I would highly, highly recommend Premium Rush. So there you go, guys. It's everything I watched throughout the week. Definitely watched some great titles, with the exception of Detention. That was garbage. Stay the hell away from that movie. It was really, really bad. But everything else I watched, I certainly did enjoy. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go lie down now and take a nap because, man, I feel like shit. But that's it, and then see you in my next video.